Okay, so cars, I like them. Also, these pink flowers are pretty great. I wouldn't drive a car over or between them, as that would be unhealthy and unpleasant a thing to do to these nice pink flowers. They're great. They also could be purple. Those mountains are also nice. Z Seal. Prepare to be blown away by me talking annoyingly forever and ever and ever and ever. So, I was born in 86. So, when I was a little kid, 80s cars from the early 80s and stuff were around a lot. And when I was a kid, my mom had this car here, right? Not this exact one, but it was this Subaru. It was light blue, like this, kind of. And you see, this car, like these cars, you see how they got these hubcaps or lack thereof, but even when they do, they're like these ugly 80 ones with like all these bits and pieces, these lines and black rubber and greebly bits on the bumpers and just, I have sticky outy pieces everywhere. And you see the taillights, they've got like these chunk pieces that you can see with screws and everything's just kind of ribbed and it's got like these little indents into them and everything is just greebly and kind of rattly looking, me being visual again. But this is the car we had with these old hubcaps and these lights and these all stuff all over the place. So this kind of thing is like what I was used to, and there was a lot of cars looking like this around. So as, it got into the late 80s and early 90s and people started having newer cars like that, there started to be cars like this, where it was like super just round jelly bean looking and everything. There was no sticky outy trim on the side. And, these hubcaps are a little different, but you see how they're flatter already. And actually, here, this is a late 80s Toyota Camry. My grandma had this. And you see how the hubcaps are like really flat. Now, you might think these are cheesy looking, but they're like super flat and warm gray, no spokes or like sticky outy bits that look like 70s AMC Jeeps or anything. It was like these warm, sunny looking things. It's kind of, what it sort of was. And so cars looking like this just looked amazing to me because it's like no flat edges, no straight sharp edges, just all smooth and looks like candy, right? It looks like you could eat it. And so I just loved these things. Like the bumpers don't stick all out, everything's round, and the colors too. In the early 90s, manufacturers started remembering that you could make cars in colors that were good looking, right? So you had this and green. I mean, look at this. Oh man, just the green in the field. Oh, I love this green color with the jelly bean shape, although that's got a bit of trim on it. But whatever. And the tail lights. In some countries, you have to have the orange signal lights, and in others, you can just have it red. But I like it when they have the orange ones, because when you have a colored car, it's sort of like a trick of your brain when you look at it, even though there's only two colors. Well, there's the red, the orange, and the white. If the car is another color, then if you're kind of looking at it, these taillights look rainbow-colored, sort of, even though they're only two. And so I love that rainbow-colored look to the taillights. Also, 90s cars had, like, this sort of sparkly, I guess it's the reflector in it, but a lot of times cars these days, you'll have something like this. It's got sparklies, but they're more coarse, and there's like a lot of portions of the light that are just flat and kind of just look like crappy plastic to me. I don't really know. I kind of like this car, actually, but stuff like this, it would seem like sparkly. And you notice there's no ribs or sticky outy bits at all. It's completely flat, and it just looked so modern. It looked like the 80s sticky outy stuff was like 8-bit beeps and boops, and this was like the digital. I'm thinking of a digital sound effect, kind of like that Intel sound, but like or something, the way they would always do with digital in the 90s. They'd have these little square pixels and make it go. You know what I'm talking about? No, never mind. This is just me babbling then. But that's another thing that was beautiful to me about this. And, what else was there? Jeez, I don't know. But like, these are some of the cars I like. The Honda Del Sol. This is, I don't normally like these big sedans, but this is just beautiful looking. Look at that. I don't like the spoiler so much either, but that is gorgeous. I wouldn't mind owning any of these freaking automobiles. Okay? So that, and even weird ones like just When I was a kid, I used to love what this weird sort of blackout, semi-transparent looking thing on the back when cars would do it. It looked really futuristic. So you might think this car looks a little odd, but like, seriously, I just love this. I wouldn't mind having this, even though all of these cars are probably like crappy in terms of performance. They probably have stupid dinky little engines that are no fun, but like, I never driven any of these. I'm just talking about looks. This, love it. Well, say what you will, but it's just so cool and quirky. This is a Japan-only Toyota Serra with these gull-wing doors, which has like a little 1.5-liter Civic-y type engine, but who cares? Look at this thing. It's adorable and round and sunny. Oh, I'm telling you, I love that green color, by the way. Yeah, look at this. Oh yeah, weird cars that are slightly different than that I also somehow liked. This one, somebody had this car in their neighborhood when I was a kid. This Nissan Pulsar NX. And again, you might think these taillights are kind of cheesy, but I loved them. That was like, whoa, I'd never seen taillights like that. It's so crazy and different, right? And again, it just looks totally flat and digital and modern to me. And I love this. Not a huge, ginormous fan of the rest of the body, but I used to love this when I was a kid. So that's another. But that's not really 90s. That's like late 80s or something like that. What else we got here? I mean, stuff like this, you know, anything that's sort of shaped like that. Oh, yeah, another thing. Cars back then, they used to sort of tuck under, so it looked like let's go back to that Del Sol. You can see the kind of well, maybe not so much with this one, but like the tucked under kind of feel, say with this one maybe. Yeah, it feels like even though there is a bit of a bump there, it just looks like it's kind of rounded underneath, so the whole thing seems like it's a floating jelly bean or whatever. Like it seems like it's sort of not attached to the ground. Like it's just it gives it a distinctive form. Whereas newer cars like this one, for example, the 2015 Elantra or whatever, they've all got this sort of like great big thing there, and like this part is like sort of indented looking, and a lot of times cars will have like these big skirts around there and around the front that make them, instead of tucking under, it just kind of comes to a stop. And I guess they probably have to do that for safety regs or something, but like I don't really like the look of that. It's just too big, and it feels like a clay model whose bottom isn't finished, if you get me. Like they carved the top, but the bottom's still just like a skirt around it, you know what I mean? So that's another reason I love these 90s cars, is for that. And even, I gotta say something funny, even crappy cars like this Pontiac Le Mans with the taillights and the kind of like blackout looking thing, I used to like this as a kid. I wouldn't want to drive this or own this though, that's going a bit far. But you see they kind of sparkle. Well, it's a little hard to see with the stuff there, but what else? Saturn, that. Oh yeah, this is also how cars looked in the 80s. I was going to use this as an example. Spokes and all of that stuff. But yeah, here's another example of those digitally taillights where it's just flat and it looks like there's something covering them, just tinting them, and it's just like flat and transparent looking. It looks kind of like the tempered glass PC cases now with the RGB lighting. Like it totally looks like that, right? Like that looks beautiful and this looks beautiful, right? So that's that. Oh yeah, that's a Miata. I was going to say, you might think that I would love the Miata because it fits all my criteria, but weirdly, that's kind of an exception. Where's my Miata there? For some reason, the Miata doesn't quite do it for me, and it might be that the stance is a little too flat or something. Like it doesn't... It sort of seems like a bar of soap, and it doesn't quite have a slant on it or something like that. Or maybe I just like the roof. I like the roofs being like slanted and fastbacky and swooshy. I'm not sure what it is about the Miata. Also, these taillights are tinted a bit dark, and I just don't know what it is. A bit too grape-like. Kind of the second or third gen Ford Taurus problem where it's round, but it's not like excitingly round to me. So, little on the Miata. But yeah. Oh yeah, and here's what I'm talking about. Like when you do mods to cars like this, so you put these skirts, it looks horrible to me. Like you're ruining the floating look with the tuck under, right? So that's why I like them stock. Now, right. Uh, I also, however, just love cars in general, even though I haven't driven very many of them ever, and I love the design of them. I don't know much about engines and technicals. I'm like just a pleb who loves the design of cars and can tell you all about it all day long. And I even love a lot of cars some people might think are ugly because I find them charming. Like, for example, you asked what my favorite 90s car is. I can't pick just one. But if you're talking about, like, my favorite car that kind of looks like a 90s car, proto version, but not quite, but weird, but just, like, fascinating, check this out. This is the Nissan Silvia S10, or otherwise known as the, I think, Datsun SX10 or something like that. I think it's late 70s. And it's like this. Now, again, you might look at this and say, what the hell, that's hideous. And I get it. I get it. It looks pretty weird. But I cannot take my eyes off this car. And I mean that in the best possible way. It is fascinating to me. I love these wraparound taillights, and especially the version without this little black piece there. If there is a version without that black piece. Yeah, this, where like the whole thing just goes around. This looks like a 90s style taillight. Nobody was doing taillights like this in the 70s or whatever. So it's got a sort of 90s style looking taillight. It's got 70s big bumpers. It's got a wheel arch that looks like those big old fat late 60s Buicks. And it's got a front. I don't have a picture of the front. Let me find a picture of the front. Yeah, so here's the Japanese front end. So it looks like this sort of weird mini muscle car front. And then the American front end is this ugly 70s thing with these carrot chunk lights there and the sort of putting around lights in a square pod, almost pacer looking thing, which I think this front end is super ugly, but it just like adds to the charm to me even more somehow because it's just so weird that it doesn't match. I don't know. I prefer the Japanese front, though, I'll tell you that much. But, like, yeah, can the stripe, though. Don't like the stripe. And, yeah, I would probably put the Japanese front on, to be perfectly honest. But the rear and the sides, love them. You might think me bizarre, but, hey, I don't care. So, this is my favorite car.